Tom, I was talking to one of our members yesterday, actually. He was telling me he just bought a new convertible just in the last week or two.
Right.
Just bought a new convertible, and they went for a ride in the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
Wanted to see the leaves changing, and they missed it by a couple of weeks. We were up at the Monarch a couple weeks ago, and we started to see the leaves changing.
Yep.
Happened relatively fast this year. They went from green to gone,
Right.
without a lot of time to see all the beautiful changing into the reds and yellows and greens, or reds and yellows and oranges. But it also marks sort of a changing of the seasons that I always look forward to every year, and I know you don't.
Yeah, I'm not a cold weather person.
No.
I think I'm pretty much done with cold weather for the rest of my life. I don't need it. I don't invite it.
Well, you've made it pretty clear. If you had the choice, you'd be set up by a beach in Miami.
Yep. Yes, I would.
As much as possible.
Yep.
I lived down there for almost a decade. I could do without.
I not only like the heat, I'm one of the rare strange people. I like the humidity. I actually feel good when it's hot and humid.
And you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Now, that said, you've lived in Kansas, in Colorado, and in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You haven't exactly.
I've also lived in rural Michigan.
Okay. There's humidity in rural Michigan.
There's
I'll give
humidity
you that.
in the summer, and you want to talk about a brutal winter. When I moved to, because I used to teach at Hillsdale College, when I moved from Southern California, sunny Southern California, metropolitan Los Angeles, sunny Southern California, to rural Michigan. And, I knew moving there that it was going to be cold, of course, and there's winter and snow and all that. What I did not expect, it's gray. The sky is literally gray for 7-8 months.
Yep.
The sun just disappeared. There's this marine layer that just covers Michigan coming off the Great Lakes, and you don't see the sun at all.
Well, I think one day we'll have to talk about whether or not Miami is actually what you think it is. The constant rain in the afternoons, year round, and that kind of stuff.
They have umbrellas, right?
Yeah, but it's not as nice to sit on the beach when it's raining. And
you can have your little cocktails you can have your little umbrella in your drink. You can have your big umbrella for the rain.
The little umbrellas had to be created to make sure your drink didn't get watered down. The changing the seasons, and you like this. I don't so much.
Yeah.
But it was making me think about this new change that's happening in Miami right now. And it's almost as if the mayor of Miami, I think his last name is Suarez, the mayor of Miami has taken our comments that governments are never productive.
Right.
He's taken it as a challenge.
Good for him.
I know.
Think.
Well, I still don't know how I feel about this, but it's interesting. He's at least getting creative, and that was the challenge of this month's case study, was get a little creative, GoFundMe or things like that. Don't just take money from citizens who don't want to give it to you.
Or just keep spending them into debt.
Right. So what the mayor of Miami has done is, using the Bitcoin blockchain, he has created Miami Coin. New currency that can be used to pay for different things around Miami, can be used to pay some of your government fees, some of your taxes.
So for those not familiar, and I don't know that much about it, I'm about to exhaust my knowledge on the subject. This is a digital electronic cryptocurrency, right? So it's not physical coins. It's something you have an account online, and that's where your coins are.
Correct. And there's dozens of different coins out there. Anybody can really go create a coin. The new fastest rising, I think it went up 300% last week. It's called Shiba Inu coin. and there's another one that Elon Musk has always been big on, called Dogecoin, that looks like it's spelled doggy coin. And both Shiba Inu coin and Dogecoin, or doggy coin, have pictures of dogs on, and so kind of perfect for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But the whole idea of all of these cryptocurrencies they're built on this blockchain technology that decentralizes them, that makes them virtually impossible to hack, if not absolutely impossible. You and I have had this conversation before. I'll go with virtually impossible to hack.
It's hard to say that there's any kind of safe that a thief can't get into.
But so far, nobody's been able to. And it makes it harder for governments to control the flow of the money. Now, governments can regulate it. They can regulate who can accept it and if you can cash out. But it does open up a lot of opportunities to to keep your money away from government control.
Right.
Well, the mayor of Miami says, forget that. I don't want you to keep it away from government. I want to encourage you to use this. So what he did was he went out and he invented Miami Coin.
Yeah.
Miami Coin is digital cryptocurrency that can be used to spend, like I said, on your taxes, on your registering your car, your licensing, your property taxes, whatever you want.
So you can use it to pay the government for things you're supposed to pay the government
Correct.
for. Okay.
And what makes cryptocurrency valuable, what gives it its value, is supply and demand. Whereas,
wow, there's an old-fashioned idea, Dave. Supply and demand.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody actually understood economics. They went to their economics class. So they create supply and demand. You limit the number of coins that are in existence.
Right.
The minute you limit supply and you give a reason for people to want the product, create demand, all of a sudden now you have something that has some value.
Right.
So what he did was he said, look, there are people who can't pay their taxes or don't want to, or they have knowledge of technology and they want to put that to use. We're going to go create this Miami Coin. And what you do with all types of these cryptocurrencies is you mine them. Right? You go out and you mine them. And
what is that for our listeners who aren't familiar? What does that mean to go mine these coins?
It's a really complicated concept. So I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. To go mine a cryptocurrency basically means that it's out there in the internet somewhere.
Okay.
And you use servers to essentially go search for it.
Okay.
It often will use massive amounts of electricity, massive amounts of computing power. You'll have dozens of servers that are out there processing different pages, different sites, different things, looking for this currency, almost in the same way that a gold miner would have gone.
Well, I was just going to ask about that. That's an interesting phrase there. It brings to mind the image of mining for gold, and of course, when you're mining for gold, you don't know for sure how much. In fact, you don't know for sure if there's any gold. There might not be. You might spend a lot of time and invest a lot of energy mining a certain part of a mountain, and it turns out there's no gold at all. So you just don't know. So it's something similar. It's
correct.
You go out looking for it, but you're not quite sure how much you're going to find.
And now we're starting to sort of test my limits of my understanding of this.
Okay.
But it's not so much you going out and doing it, like sitting there typing, trying to find and look around. You create algorithms that run on the servers, and you just let the servers run for days or weeks or months at a time while they're out there looking for this cryptocurrency. And with a certain amount of coins out there and a demand for it, people who get it, and they can trade it and they can sell it.
Yeah.
And that's how you get value out of this. We've seen this with Bitcoin in recent months. In the last couple of months, Bitcoin's gone from about $31,000 a coin to over $56,000 a coin because the demand has gone up and supply never changes. However, there are still coins out there to be mined, and people are still running these servers, but it's become very expensive to do. So back to the point of Miami, the mayor said, look, if you are one of these tech people and you can mine Bitcoin and you can mine Ethereum and you can mine Shiba Inu coin or Dogecoin or whatever else it is you want to mine, why don't you consider mining Miami Coin? And we're going to help make sure that it's usable, that you can find ways to use it that are beneficial to you. Basically creating a product and putting it out there.
Right.
The caveat was, with Miami Coin, if you mine Miami Coin, you get 70% of what you find, and the city takes back 30%. So the city doesn't have the coin yet. It has to wait until it's mined.
Okay.
So they're letting other people go do the mining for them. But if you find the Miami Coin, they take 30% and you take 70%.
Okay.
So it's a product.
Yeah.
You get 70% of what you find.
Do you happen to know? I don't know. With these other kinds of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and others,
you get 100%.
You get 100%.
Correct.
So in those other cryptocurrencies, is it correct to say that the inventor or the creator of them don't really benefit from their own product?
No,
is that true
because
or not?
most of them kept some at the beginning.
I see.
Or they were the first to mine it. So they created this.
Yep. And they have an interest in the value going up.
Maybe the first guy kept 1 million coins. Yep. I don't know the numbers, but let's say there's 20 million Bitcoin out there, and he kept 1 million of it, that means he's got 5% of the total Bitcoin market. When he created it, it was worth pennies. It was worth nothing until he started getting people to start wanting it.
When it's worth $50,000,
that person has now generated enough demand where it's $56,000 a coin, and now his 1 million shares he's a multi-billionaire many times over.
So the government of Miami, the local government, is now into the Bitcoin business.
The cryptocurrency business. And what they've done is they've said, look, you can go mine whatever you want, but you might have an easier time finding Miami coin, mining Miami coin. He's created incentives to go out and look for it. And if you do, the city gets a portion. In 75 days since he launched this program, the city has brought in $16.5 million in revenue. So it's totally by choice.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. On the one hand, it's a little impressive. It is impressive. He's being a little creative here. And on the other hand, I don't know that I want more money going into the coffers of the government. It's one of the reasons I never fully liked the economic argument that included Art Laffer's famous curve, because part of his argument was if you lower the tax rate, government revenues will increase. And he was right about that as a basic principle of economics. But I never thought that wasn't the reason to lower tax rates so that government gets more revenue. The reason to lower the tax rates is to stop taking so much money from other people.
Absolutely. But his point is also made in this, right? If you have a bunch of people in Miami, and this has become a big thing, there's a lot of people mining cryptocurrency in Florida. I think one of the things I've noticed, it does use a lot of electricity. And in Florida, where you have more sunlight, you can run a lot more on solar. And so there are a lot more cryptocurrency server farms being run on solar power.
As you say, when you say using electricity, you're talking about running computers.
Yes, running computer servers. It can cost thousands of dollars a day to run the type of server power you need to.
I see.
I mean, we don't think about when you and I turn on our laptops, we don't think about, okay, this is going to cost me 37 cents for the next 4 hours while my computer's being charged. But when you're talking about the type of computing power that it takes to mine, some people are paying thousands of dollars a day just to mine cryptocurrency. So you have to find it or else you're in a lot of trouble. In places like Florida where you can add in solar, where it's a lot easier to get solar power.
You have all that glorious warm sunshine.
Warm sunshine. There's a lot of mining of cryptocurrency happening in Florida. So he said, if you're going to do this anyway, why don't you do it? Now, to the Laffer's point, I bet if he said, hey, okay, you've been doing this for a while, you've been giving us 30%, we're going to drop it to 20%, I bet more people would probably jump in into that, right? So it's a question of where is that balance?
And if they increase the rate, we're going to take 40%, 50%, 60%. The demand for the product would drop sharply, which means the value would drop, and fewer people would be looking for it, which would mean less money.
Which actually brings up an interesting point that I hadn't thought about, is he has an interest in also keeping not only enough people mining that coin, so he gets the percentage, but he has an interest in the value of that coin going up. Right? The higher that coin goes up in value, they're 30% or 20% or whatever else it is. So it really is this gamification, what was John Nash's theory, game theory. It's a game theory of where is that sweet spot of I get the most people to create the most value while still getting.
Well, and it really puts a spotlight on, we keep using this phrase, value. I think many people don't realize what a modern, this really was an insight, a discovery of modern economics. Some very thoughtful people, including John Locke, Adam Smith, even Karl Marx, all of them really bought into what used to be called the labor theory of value. The old argument was that the economic value of anything, think of your house, your car, your computer, your clothes, and someone asks, what's the value? What's the price of that? The old thinkers said, well, the value or the price is determined by the amount of labor that goes into it, thinking that the more labor is required, then the more valuable thing would be. It's really modern economists have come along and said, no, that's not right. Cranwitter might spend hundreds or thousands of hours producing something, and if nobody wants it, it doesn't mean that it's more expensive, right? That is worth more.
Right.
The real source of value is in the eyes of others, in the opinions of others. When people want something, the thing becomes valuable.
It's really interesting. A lot of our listeners know, and for those who don't, I think this is, I'm excited to actually share this. Maybe excited is the wrong word, but we've been trying to redevelop our website.
Yes.
And instead of bringing on a full-time employee, and even employees, we've been working with contractors.
Yes.
Contractors generally bill hourly. They say, you want a website, my fee is this, and that's the way most of the world works.
Right.
And I've been sitting there thinking, I get that that's your time. What's the value of the site?
Exactly.
What is the value of the site? I'll pay you what the value of the site is. I don't care how long it takes you. I don't care if it takes you an hour.
Right.
I don't care if it takes you 50 hours or 5,000 hours. What is the value of the site? And this goes back to my time at ad agencies.
Well, we do care about the time in this sense, right? We don't want to pay somebody for dozens or hundreds of hours if they produce a bad website.
Right.
That's not valuable to us.
Right.
It doesn't matter to us at that point how much time they put in. What matters is the website valuable to us as business owners? Does it do what we want it to do? By the way, our website's going to get a whole lot better.
It is.
Very soon.
It is.
It's going to become more valuable for us, for all of our members. That's the key thing, right? It's really interesting you bring up that example, because that very model of billing by the hour, whether it's a contractor, a lawyer, a lot of lawyers will bill by the hour, and it's sort of based on, that is a reflection of the old labor theory of value. Yep. You're paying for how much time rather than, hey, Mr. Lawyer, win my case, and then here's what I'll pay you if you win my case. I don't care how many hours you put into that. It's
a perfect example, the lawyer one. I have a friend, he was actually on the county commission in Delray Beach, Florida.
Okay.
He was a county commissioner in Delray Beach, Florida. We got to know each other well when I lived down there, speaking of Miami. So he was an attorney, and his specialty was DUI cases.
Okay.
And he just said, I have a flat rate. You got a DUI, I charge $5,000.
Period.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter if it takes me an hour. It doesn't matter if it takes me 50 hours.
Yep.
I charge you $5,000 and I take care of your DUI for you. Here's what everybody knew about him. He was on the county commission. He was a crony. He knew all of the right people. He was close with the DA. He knew all of the probation officers. He knew all of the probation locations. And if you went and you gave him $5,000, he'd make sure that your experience, if you got a DUI, was as simple and as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And he always got you the best results. And guess what? Every week, 5 or 6 new clients would come in the door. Here's my check.
Right.
He said, okay, I'll have it done.
They were paying for the result that they valued.
Yep.
They were not paying him for the number of hours he was going to spend.
What they didn't realize going in is he was going to spend about 2 hours on a phone call with the DA every 1 day a week. He had a set call scheduled with the DA. He said, here are my clients. Let's plead them all out. Let's get them all done. He'd work maybe 2 hours a week.
Right.
2 hours a week. But nobody cared.
Well,
they got the value that they wanted for the $5,000.
They got the results that they value. That's right.
And if it had ever happened to me, he would have been the first person I call.
Yeah.
I know I'm paying you.
Yeah.
I'm paying you basically $5,000 for 1 hour of work.
Right.
And it's worth every penny.
Right. That's right.
So it's really interesting to see this.
I just wanted to add in. I mean, there's this idea seems so simple. The price or the value of something, how much something costs, is determined by how much other people value it. That seems so simple, and yet millions of Americans can't get this. I see all the time memes floating around on social media, and they're accurate. They'll show some woman who plays WNBA basketball, right? And then they'll have an account of how much she earns. And then they'll have an NBA, a man playing in the NBA.
Yep.
And of course, his salary's, many times larger. And they'll say, see, this is sexual discrimination.
Right.
That's the point of these things. And I'm always looking at saying, no, it's not. It has nothing to do with sexual discrimination. Many people greatly value NBA basketball. They'll pay a lot of money for tickets. They can get TV stations can get a lot of viewers, so they can sell lots of a lot of people value it. Very few people value WNBA basketball. They don't want to pay much for tickets. They aren't going to watch it on TV, and there's the difference in how much they get paid.
It's really interesting you bring that up because it opens us up to a whole conversation about sports in general. And I can't remember if it was earlier this week, if it was last week, I saw an interview. There's a new rugby sevens league that's starting, and I think Fox Sports bought the streaming rights. So one of the Fox Business shows had a couple people from the league on trying to promote it. They want people to watch it. Right. Their claim, their point of differentiation, what makes them unique is they're paying the men and the women the same amount.
And nobody's going to care.
Right. Now, to one extent, people don't watch rugby in America anyway.
Right.
So I don't know that the men are going to get that much higher a rating than the women, so I can kind of see it. But at the same time, I would rather watch, to me, my personal, I'm not interested in watching women slam each other to the ground playing rugby. It's just not, that doesn't appeal to my taste.
Right. You can draw it an even more extreme example that illuminates the principle more. Think of a professional baseball team, and you might have players making $5, $10, $15 million in a year, or maybe even more.
30 or 40 at this point.
And then you look at, your favorite nephew's Little League team. How come nobody's being paid $30 million on the Little League team? Because there are very few people who value that team. A handful of parents want to go see their own kids play, and that's it, right? That's why, because people don't value the Little League team much. They don't value it enough to go pay a lot for tickets and pay for sponsoring. They're not going to do that. And so there's no money in the Little League game.
The lone exemption to that, or exception to that rule, and I don't want to go all the way down this tangent, but the lone exception is college football.
Okay.
And college basketball.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people who want to pay and sponsor to go watch, and it's government intervention.
Right.
It's government intervention that's prohibiting them from getting paid.
Well, but that's the difference, right? With your typical Little League team, 20 people, 30 people show up for a game. That's it. But at a high level, NCAA Division I basketball, football, you're packing stadiums. There's a big. You're getting up there real close to the professional level in terms of demand. Like, people really value it, and so those players, they could be making some serious money. But you're right. There's all kinds of government intervention that stops that.
Here's where this gets really interesting. In the age of social media, there are those peewee athletes who are so exceptional that they start getting followings on social media.
Right.
The question is, should they be getting paid? And if they do get paid and then you take away their eligibility, should they have to forfeit the ability to get paid to maintain eligibility? I mean, this thing gets so complicated, all because government's getting involved. And the perfect example of this, there's a new phenom on Instagram right now. He's a 10 or 12-year-old hockey player. His dad posts his highlights from his games on Instagram from all of his games and his practices. This kid is spectacular. I mean, this kid is doing things we're seeing NHL players do. And then you're seeing him against other little kids. It's like watching LeBron James as an adult or Michael Jordan as an adult playing me. Right? I mean, it's not even competitive. But he's picking the puck up with his stick and swirling it around and throwing it in the net, and nobody can stop him. Now, a kid like that, he's causing entertainment for people. He should get compensated if people want to compensate him.
If they value it. And and that sort of brings us to a big subject here when we're talking about sports, especially professional level sports. I think people forget that every professional team, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, they are a business. And you hear this mantra repeated over and over and over in business school. What's the number one purpose of a business? to make a profit. Right?
At least I hope they're still saying that in business school.
I hope so. Well, it probably, actually, we're going to go visit a business school here very soon.
Yeah.
Probably they're hearing a lot of, you need to engage in social justice in the business schools. But this really is the basic point of a business, is to make a profit. And yet, I think many Americans forget that when they're looking at their favorite sports team, because they're thinking about the sports aspect.
Yep.
And as a fan, they want to win. So they're thinking, well, the purpose of my favorite team is to win. But somebody in behind the scenes that owns this thinking, no, the purpose here is to make a profit, which may sometimes correspond with winning, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And this is, we live in Colorado. We've talked about this. Most of our listeners are here, so I can use this as an example. You'll get a lot of people here saying, I hate the Rockies owners. They don't spend enough money on their team. They don't care about winning. Well, first of all, it's a total misnomer.
Right.
The Rockies are in the middle of the pack. They spend over $150 million a year on salaries, which is right in the middle. It's close to the mean in professional baseball. But that's not their goal. Their goal is to entertain. Right. Their goal is to provide a product that people want to watch on television and come to the games and enjoy and buy merchandise, right? And spend money with them and to make a profit. And we as a fan base, or we as a city, more so we as a city, don't demand a winning team. We enjoy it when they win.
But even when they don't win, lots of people still come out for the games. Coors Field it's a beautiful stadium. It's gorgeous. It's right downtown, so it's really convenient to, maybe go out to eat someplace fun and then walk over to the game. And it's a really enjoyable summer evening.
Right.
Really, regardless of whether they win or not.
The Rockies were one of the worst teams in baseball this year.
Right.
They still averaged 35,000 fans a game.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, yeah. I think over that.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Tampa Bay Rays,
you
and I, both Yankees fans also.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Rays, who knocked the Yankees out of the playoffs.
Well, the Red Sox did.
The Red Sox did. And then the Red Sox played Tampa.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're right.
But Tampa's been very good. Tampa won the American League. They were in first place in the American League East, which is a really tough division, and they've been a serious powerhouse for many years. I mean, this is a consistent playoff team, and has went to the World Series. They're very good. They don't spend much money.
They spent $68 million on payroll this year.
Isn't that amazing?
The Rockies
and people in Tampa don't go see them play.
Which is why they spend $68 million on payroll. Because nobody goes to see them.
Right.
They put out a great product.
Yep.
And they win games, and nobody goes. So why spend money on a team if nobody's going to come show up?
Maybe that's one thing I don't like about Florida. If they don't like baseball down there, I mean, come on.
Well, knowing your background, you're probably going to go be a Marlins fan. Now, you talk about a stadium that's always empty and doesn't spend any money. Now, I'm sure Jeter's trying to turn that around a little bit. Derek Jeter bought the team, and he's brought in a lot of his Yankee brethren to help run the organization, which would make you a Marlins fan. But that was another team. Nobody shows up. I mean, we're talking 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 fans a game. Now, compare that to the Rockies. And it's just because they're not providing a value that other people, that other activities in the area are doing.
Right.
What's really interesting to me about the Rockies in particular is Colorado used to be a place that there wasn't a whole lot to do. You went skiing in the winter. You'd go hiking in the summer. There wasn't a ton to do. We didn't have a great restaurant scene, and we didn't have a great Denver has evolved as a city to having great, amazing restaurants and great shows and all these concert venues and all of these theater venues. And there's so many things to do in the city. And yet the Monfort family, who owns the Rockies, have figured out we can still provide something that makes 35,000 people choose to come and enjoy our stadium any given night and watch us on television on any given night instead of going and doing all of those other things.
Right.
And that's what they're supposed to do.
So the owners of a baseball team will sit back and say, okay, we're running a business. We need to generate revenue. We're going to do that we're going to sell tickets. And then, we're going to sell a bunch of really expensive beer and hot dogs and things like that at the stadium. And we're going to put these games on TV and sell some advertising, right, with sponsors and that sort of thing. And so every team has to look at its own base and say, what do these people value?
Right.
And sometimes, in the case of really diehard baseball cities like New York or Boston, winning's important.
Yep.
They want to win. Those fans get upset if their teams aren't winning. They might not come out to the game.
Boston might be the exception. I mean, they
Well,
didn't win for so many decades.
That's true.
And they still turned out.
That's true. I do like to remind my Boston Red Sox friends, the fans
You
who are
struggle to call them friends, by the way.
The bottom line is if you like the Boston Red Sox, you've been really accustomed to losing for a long, long time. But the point is, in every baseball city depends on what those people value. And as strange as it seems, winning many games or going to the playoffs, going to World Series may not be a priority for, case in point, right here in Denver, Colorado, the Rockies fans. That's not real important to go to the playoffs or go win World Series. They're still going to go out and support their team and have a great time and spend a lot of money.
I would venture to say, and I can't attribute this to any fact other than anecdotal conversations I've had with people in and around the team. The best thing the Rockies ever did was not sign a particular player. From a business perspective, was to build their rooftop. For those who haven't been to Coors Field, the rooftop was they cleared out a bunch of stands where it was on the upper deck where nobody was actually sitting and nobody could actually see anything. Straight away center field, furthest as you could be from home plate. They cleared it out and they made a bar district.
Right.
It's several bars and it's standing room only. And people walk around and they have tailgate games and they've got lounges. They even have Miami-style cabanas that you can rent for corporate events. And you can watch the game on television even though it's being played 20 feet behind you.
Yep.
And you can't see the field from the cabanas, but people rent them and spend a fortune to have these corporate events or their birthday party or whatever it is in these cabana areas where they have bottle service and people bringing them drinks and food and everything else.
It's an experience they value.
That was an experience they value. That's what people in Colorado are saying they want.
Now, in baseball, tends to be more of a kind of free market environment in the sense that there's not revenue sharing. There aren't strict rules about whatever you want to say, the caps for how much they spend, right? I mean, some teams, Yankees, the Red Sox, the Dodgers, they spend a lot of money on their players. I mean, 3 times, 4 times the amount that some of the smaller teams will. You mentioned Tampa before, the Kansas City Royals. I mean, their total budgets are much smaller.
Well, go back to a lot of people know the story of Moneyball.
Yeah,
right. And the movie, the Oakland story, the movie starring Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Billy Bean.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the author's name. Meserich. Ben Meserich wrote this great book. About how Oakland had no money. They couldn't spend money. Fans weren't coming. TV contracts were minimal. They were competing with the Giants in their own market. And they had very limited payroll. And they had to figure out how to get fans. In Oakland, fans cared about winning.
Yeah.
So they had to figure out how do we win without committing to budgets that we can't afford.
Right. And they did.
Right.
Now, so what happens when you turn to a game, if you go like from baseball, which is relatively free market, to something like football, which is much more centrally planned, right? And the whole NFL as a league, there's a much greater degree of revenue sharing and things like that. What happens to that value base, to the business, the owner of a football team trying to figure out how to maximize value and how to generate revenue?
It's amazing how many differences there are. There's an old George Carlin stand-up that if anybody's never seen it, he does the difference between baseball and football.
Yeah.
But the differences between the businesses of baseball and football are massive. First of all, football is a tax-exempt organization, whereas baseball, the Major League Baseball, the actual central organization is a business.
Yeah.
So they run a business. They do licensing deals. They do some television deals. Some of that money gets distributed out to teams, and some of that stays within Major League Baseball.
Okay.
The NFL, in professional football, they're a tax-exempt organization. The teams are businesses. At the beginning of every year, the teams pay into the central tax-exempt organization to pay critical infrastructure, salaries, things like that of the commissioner and of people like that. But then those people go out and they do deals on behalf of all of the teams. So whereas in baseball, the Yankees have the Yes Network.
Right.
The Rockies have a deal with AT&T Rocky Mountain. You go negotiate your own TV deals, and whatever you can make, whatever the value is that people, that the networks see, whoever's willing to spend money, does that. In football, teams are not allowed to sign their own television deals. Instead, they've hired this central tax-exempt organization who goes out and signs all the TV deals, usually for several $billion. And I mean several. I'm not talking 2 or 3, but several $billion. That money comes in, and then that money gets redistributed to all of the teams equally. So all of the teams, this is one of the big differences between football and baseball. All of the teams in the NFL are basically guaranteed to be profitable. They have negotiated their deals with players, for example. The salary cap in baseball, there's no salary cap in baseball. The Dodgers have some great TV contract. They spend $330 million a year on salaries, whereas Tampa's spending $68 because they don't have a good TV deal. In football, the salary cap is set for every team. It's the same. And that cap is set as a percentage of the TV revenue for the year.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So the league knows how much we're getting in that year.
So every team is basically in the same position.
And they're told you can only spend up to this much, and you have to spend at least this much. And so the teams know they're in this little spectrum.
So it's when you start digging into the business side of professional football, I mean, it raises a question for me. Is there a business incentive to win? Does it really matter if a team has a winning record or goes to the playoffs or not? In terms of running an actual business that's a football team.
It's about convincing your fans that they should care beyond. Depends on how much money you want to make, I guess, right? There are teams who are very content to just say, we're going to do what we need to do to be relevant in the league and not steal money from other teams. But they don't go out of their way to go sign the best players and sign players that their jerseys are going to sell a fortune, or their teams can go get a bunch of licensing deals. Whereas you have other teams that say, we can make a lot of extra money if we go out and are successful.
I mean, to your point, so there's we just heard, this is sort of news, the coach for the
Las Vegas Raiders.
Just resigned.
It was a forced resignation.
Some emails were discovered from years ago, saying ugly things about various people, and so he resigned. But I believe those emails were discovered as part of an investigation that are the Washington Redskins still called the Redskins?
No, it's the Washington football team. The Washington Football Club.
Washington.
It feels very European soccer to me at this point.
Yeah, but the NFL has been looking into the Washington Football Club. It's hard to me to say that seriously. Football Club.
Can we just point out how appropriate it is that that's in D.C.?
Yeah.
I mean, of all places where this is going to happen, and where they've been now like multiple years without a name and all of that. It's happening in the swamp.
Of course it is. Because there was a question whether, I want to say the Redskins, whether the football club actually wanted to win or not. And that's part of this ongoing investigation, which is all connected to the business side.
Well, and I think we're still learning some of the details of all of this. And I'll be honest, I got so frustrated with the NFL because of politics over the last couple of years that people who knew me 5 years ago would be shocked to know me, and hadn't seen me since would be shocked to know me today. I could have told you every stat of every player and know everything about every team in football and baseball and basketball and hockey. It was sports and politics, and that was basically my life. So this has been, I'm still kind of playing catch up.
Okay.
But apparently what happened was they're going back and they're trying to determine, has the Washington Football Club,
formerly known, remember when Prince changed his name to a
symbol?
And how do you pronounce, right? So they would always refer to him as the artist formerly known as Prince, the football team formerly known as the Redskins.
There is a phenomenal South Park episode about this that is completely inappropriate, and if anybody gets easily offended, do not watch it.
Yeah.
But essentially, Cartman, when the Redskins gave up the name, he went and trademarked the name Redskins and decided to take over the name and build a Kickstarter campaign around renaming.
And the business he starts is a business that does nothing.
Right. It's the Seinfeld of businesses.
Yes, he encourages people, send us money to do nothing.
So they're investigating the Washington Football Club because some players who used to play there, who don't anymore, have complained that the culture there was, we don't really care what happens.
Right.
We just want fans to keep showing up, and we want to keep taking our TV money and our billions every year.
Yeah.
And they have no interest in making sure their players are comfortable, are successful, are healthy, do whatever you want. It reminds me of the scene in Moneyball when David Justice, who had gone to Oakland from the Yankees and had this huge contract.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And David Justice goes and tries to get a soda out of the soda machine, and he has to pay $1. And this is a guy making millions of dollars in a league that these owners are worth millions and millions of dollars, and he can't believe that soda isn't free.
Right.
And it's just a shock. And that's basically what these guys are saying. They're saying, you go to any of these other clubs, and we've got lounges, and we've got areas to spend our time, and we've got good trainers and good training facilities.
Right.
We've got the food and the nutrition stuff we need
and
to be good
Washington
athletes.
has a politically correct name.
Right. But they're not doing anything to make sure the players are happy and healthy and safe.
Yeah.
And that was what the investigation started. So they start investigating, and they start going through the emails. Now, when we say investigating, this is the NFL investigating. It's not some government agency.
Right.
The NFL is investigating.
Right.
They have an interest in making sure all teams stay competitive.
Yep.
And they start looking at some emails. And they come across an email from John Gruden when he was working at ESPN to, it's about 10 years ago, to a guy who's now an assistant coach on the Redskins. And they were old friends, and he said some racist, sexist, misogynistic,
ugly stuff.
Ugly stuff.
Well, I always like to, whenever these instances come out, some high profile, in the news instance where someone has said or done something very ugly, something immoral, some sort of, racial injustice or sexist injustice, I always like to use that as an occasion to highlight the beauty of our founding ideas, the things that we guard at the Vino Veritas Society, the American idea, because the American idea, that central idea of human equality, that's the principle by which we can know that racial injustices are wrong, or sexist injustices, whatever. If you're violating the rights of others, that's wrong, because all men are created equal. One time I was giving a presentation. I had sort of laid out the basic ideas in the Declaration of Independence, and was talking about the history of slavery, the great American, tragic and triumphant story of abolishing slavery. And there was a woman right up in front, and she happened to have dark black skin, and she was not happy at all with my presentation. She was shaking her head and moving around. And so finally I just stopped. I said, you clearly have something you want to say to me. Go ahead and say it. And man, she just lit into the founders. She's like, I am sick and tired of hearing about these founders. They're a bunch of racist pigs, and they were slave owners. And
You've cleaned this up a little bit. She certainly didn't use language that's appropriate.
She used language I don't want to repeat, here on the podcast. Her point was, she does not care. She does not want to hear anything about the founders. I said, okay. I let her talk, and when she was done, I said, can we just agree on one? Let's find some common ground. Can we agree that slavery's wrong? And she says, damn right, slavery's wrong. I'm a black woman. I really know that slavery's wrong. I said, okay, we agree. Why? Why is it wrong? And she started to say, because all men are created equal. Because we had just been talking about the Declaration, and she stopped herself. You could see the gears in her mind were clashing, because on the one hand, her hatred towards the founders was unlimited.
Right.
And at the same time, the very principle by which she could denounce slavery as wrong was the very principle the founders upheld and said, this is our goal. This is the foundation for this country. This is the thing that we're aiming for. And so I like to remind Americans, this is a wonderful thing, being in the United States. We're in a country where when there are injustices, those injustices run afoul. They go against the very core ideas of our country.
Right.
That's good. That's something to be proud of. I live in a country where our core principles are the very standards by which we can denounce injustices as wrong. You know what would be terrible is to live in a country where when there are injustices, those injustices are sanctioned by the country, that those injustices are actually in alignment with the principles of the country. You know, I think of some great tyranny, communist, Soviet Union or Nazi Germany or something like that. When there were injustices there, that's actually what the regime required.
Let's put that into current context. I'm going to take a step back and take us right back to where we are. So the purpose of these teams, of owning a sports team, we agree, is to make money, to run a business, right? And to do that, you have to entertain a fan base. It doesn't have to be your city even, right? Just entertain a fan base who's willing to pay to watch you. We didn't talk about the NFL yet. We've talked about baseball, and the NBA yet. We've talked about football. We've talked about baseball. We haven't talked about basketball yet. You know who the number one fan base for pro basketball is?
I don't think
Communist China. They don't care about the local market. The Denver Nuggets, it's nice, but the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche own Altitude Television, right? The same way the Yankees own the Yes Network. Basketball runs the same way that baseball does in terms of TV deals. You go make your own, and that's that. Altitude Sports and Entertainment, the broadcast network for the Denver Nuggets, has not been available in Denver, Colorado for over 2 years. Their very own network. They have not worked out a TV deal with any of the TV providers. Comcast, DirecTV, Sling, Hulu.
Why is that?
Because they're all watching them in China and they're making a fortune on their TV deals in China, and they say, we don't care. We're making so much money overseas that we don't really care if you can't watch it here. We'd like you to be able to, but we're not willing to give it to you at a huge discount. So what ends up happening, and for the Nuggets in particular, it's actually, in addition to China, they have this massive market in Serbia. The Nuggets have the reigning league MVP, Nikola Jokic, who's Serbian, and he is a hero in Serbia. So they have millions of fans there watching every Nuggets game. I mean, it is like the national team of Serbia. But for the NBA, it's China. That's where they sell more jerseys. You've got billions of people there. We can't even, as Americans, we can't even think about competing with them. If LeBron James came out, he did, said some horrible things about Donald Trump. He said some horrible things about Republicans. He said some horrible things about white Americans. Chinese don't care. They're not changing their attitude. So when you talk about, we live in a country where if somebody says something, it's wrong because, and we'd stop it, right? In the NFL, nobody in China is watching the NFL. John Gruden said something that would upset a huge majority of the country.
That's a great point. Yes.
He said something that would a huge percentage of the country would morally object to.
So the NFL is going to respond.
The NFL responded. And they said, you know what, you need to go away. If LeBron James did the same thing and the Communist Party in China didn't have a problem with it, nobody's telling LeBron James to step down. Right? But there were fans. We have a little bit of time for this. Do you remember about a year ago, there was the whole dust up about Winnie the Pooh and President Xi?
Vaguely.
There was a joke going around that the head of the Chinese Communist Party looked like Winnie the Pooh. He banned Winnie the Pooh in China.
That's right, yes.
Because he was offended that people thought they looked alike. So people started making jokes.
Winnie the Pooh's actually really cute. Yeah, he's kind of huggable and snuggable, right?
A dictator doesn't want to be cute and huggable and snuggable. So you have this whole Winnie the Pooh thing. And NBA fans who were angry about how much the NBA is catering to communist China started showing up to games wearing Winnie the Pooh costumes. Those fans, for wearing a Winnie the Pooh costume, were escorted out of the building. They were thrown out of a game.
A paying fan.
A paying fan.
Because the Chinese might not like that.
And the president of the Communist Party would take the NBA off of TV, and it would cost these teams billions of dollars.
Yep. Well, so the lesson there, right, is to run a business, you got to figure out who values your product, what your product is exactly, and then who's going to value that. And if you're providing value for the communist Chinese regime, then you're going to cater to things that they like.
Right. And then you're going to get other people who find other fan bases who they can cater to.
So there's a topic we didn't get into, and I don't think we have time for it. We might pick this back up. There's a whole big political arena of building sports arenas.
Yes.
And the cronyism that comes with it. But in this case, with the basketball in particular, it's really just a sad, terrible irony that U.S. tax dollars, taxpayers, are paying to build basketball arenas.
Yep.
And then the basketball teams in those arenas do not cater to the interests and the values of those taxpayers. They're catering to a hostile foreign regime.
Right. The other part to take away from the politics side of this without getting into that political arena is, and I'm one of them, right? The people who have turned off these games because they don't want to deal with the politics, it's no longer entertaining, right?
Yeah.
My personal belief is I watch sports for the entertainment aspect. The minute they stop being entertaining, I don't care. Agree. I have friends calling me when the Broncos started this season 3-0, and I've been to more Bronco games than most people ever. Broncos start the season 3-0. My friends are calling me. You sure you're gonna not watch this season? They're really good this year. Right. They miss the fact that being good isn't the entire thing for me.
Right.
I want to be entertained, and the minute it stopped being entertained, I stopped watching. But what was hard for me to come to, and this is especially true with the NBA, because I loved the Nuggets. When the Nuggets were good, and even when they were bad. I mean, I was going to season ticket. I was a season ticket holder with my family.
Right.
When the Nuggets were winning 10 games out of 80, 82 in a season, and I was still going to as many games as I could. When the Nuggets were good, I wouldn't miss a game. It stopped being entertaining for me. And as much as I say, well, I'm going to turn it off, I'm not going to watch anymore, and that's going to show them, it's not. Us turning the TV off, it's not going to change the NBA.
Right.
It's probably not going to change the NFL. They're still getting massive TV contracts. Bars are still too afraid to turn the games off and not show games anymore.
Right.
So the teams are making a fortune on TV deals. Us turning off the games probably isn't going to change this.
Right.
They are still finding a fan base that values them.
Yep.
The only opportunity here is when somebody starts a competitor. And this is that whole other side of politics is government is now protecting those leagues from any competition. You can't come in, and we've talked about this in podcasts before, you can't come in and start a competitive team to the Rockies or to the Nuggets or to the Broncos.
Right. Well, you could if we lived in a free society, and that's why guarding the principles of freedom are always important. It's what we do at the Vino Veritas Society.
We just have to keep fighting for them.
That's right.
Be the guardians, no somos custodes.
Till next time.